Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Expendable Show. I'm your host, the Expendable. So today we've got more election stuff. I'm kind of excited to get rid of the election a little bit because I want to talk about something else other than the election. But we are almost there and we're almost done. So let's just write it out, see what happens. Um, so, but first, let's get to the important business. Like, subscribe, and ding the bell if you like my content. Hopefully you do. I'm going to keep making it regardless if you like it or not, so it don't fucking matter. But we're 2 days away. 2 days away from the election. And then it's all over with. Trump and Harris. Some of the polls have it neck and neck. I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a little bit more than that. So I am going to jump up the polls that came out. So like I said, for those of you who don't know, I like to use Real Clear Politics because they take the average of all of the polls. So that makes it a lot more accurate, I think, or at least it gives you like a roundabout figure to where you're not just guesstimating. So as of today, we're at Trump. They got Trump up a point. But the key is Trump is still up in all of the battleground states except for Wisconsin and Michigan. But Michigan at 0.6, so that could still flip Trump. And I think he's at 0.3 in Wisconsin. So that, it's still up in the air. Trump could end up getting all of them. But when you look at Georgia's starting to, it's in the 2.3 in favor of Trump. We're at Arizona's at 2.4. So those are probably going to be like moderately Trump. So I would say those are going to be two states that he picks up. Those both went Biden's way in the last election. So we're there. So battleground states are important because the general election's not, not the general election, but like the general poll it doesn't really give you a forecast as to where things are going because it goes off of mainly like where the popular vote of it is going. But when you look at the actual state by state breakdown and see where the swing states are at, that's going to pay more dividends when we're trying to guesstimate. And polling's polling, so you can't really go by what the pollsters are going to tell you because things, for one, Trump, he overperforms polls. We know that. He's been doing that. So if they're saying Trump's up by 1, he's probably up 5 in the general poll, which means he probably stands a really good chance of he's probably winning all of the swing states if we go by what we know from history. So one other thing that I'm worried about, let's say Trump's not doing too good in the swing states. Let's say Harris has the electoral college wrapped up. So there is a safety net. And so I want everybody to understand that, as I feel strongly that Trump's going to pull this out, but we know from the past that there still could be issues in the election and contesting some of these states with some of the issues that are going on right now. But if we go into the key Senate states, we have, Wisconsin, the Democrat incumbent, he's only up a point, which is Baldwin, and he's up on, I never can pronounce this guy's name, Hovde. I don't remember how it goes. But he's only up a point on the Republican challenger, so that could go either way. Ohio. So it was interesting. I was just watching Fox News, and the pollsters for Fox have, they're already saying that Marino's in the lead in Ohio, which I'm not seeing that in my Real Clear Politics poll, which I don't have that Senate race up here. But when I was researching it earlier, they've got Sherrod Brown up by a point in Ohio, where Fox says that Bernie Moreno is actually in the lead. So that one could go either way. If if Ohio goes, if Marino wins in Ohio, that's it for control in Congress. We know that the Republicans are going to hold control in the House, and it's a 50-50 split in the Senate right now. But if the Republicans pick up Ohio, and then Ted Cruz is up by 4.1 on his challenger Allred, and then you've got the Tester Sheehy, which is in Montana, and that's being held by Tester, who's a Democrat, and Sheehy's up by like 6 points on him. So that's going to flip. So chances are there's a good chance that that it could be a 52-48 advantage in the Senate, which I feel really, really good to say that that's probably likely what's going to happen. It's going to be a 52-48 advantage for the Republicans in the Senate. So they'll have the House in the Senate. So let's say, for instance, and this is what you're not seeing. You're not seeing the Democrats really putting up a big fight in the Senate races. They're so concerned with beating Trump that they've pretty much have all their chips into that bag. And I think that's a huge strategic mistake, because let's say Harris wins. She's not going to pass nothing. And, just we have to, see where the Senate races are at and the House races. And those aren't going to be in the Democrats' favor. They're going to be in the Republicans' favor. So even if Kamala Harris somehow manages to win, which I don't think she's going to, I think this is going to be a bad loss for her. That the safety net is the Republicans are going to have control over the House and the Senate. So that makes me be able to sleep at night. I don't really have a lot of tension. Plus, I'm reading when I'm watching the Trump rallies, I'm not seeing the pressure. I'm not seeing Trump. Trump doesn't seem like he's stressed. He seems like he's just cruising along. And that tells me that he's a guy that has control over this race. Where you're seeing on the Harris side, they look like they're playing catch up. So I feel really good. And so I feel really good about the race, and things are going to turn out. So just to go over some of Kamala's issues. So what she's been doing the last week, she's been campaigning that, I'm going to be for everyone. And let me get rid of my chart here. I think y'all have seen it enough. But what we're seeing come out of that is, Harris is running around saying, well, I'm for the people. I'm going to be for everyone. But then she turns around and in an interview and says, yeah, Trump's a fascist. And then you've got, she's kicking out Christians from her rallies, kicking out Muslims from her rallies. It's just not, it's not happening the way that, it's just not resonating for me. Like, what side of the fence are you going to be on? Are you going to attack half the country, or are you not? Like, I just can't wrap my mind around what her exact angle is. Then she's got, Biden doing much of the same. He's every time he opens his mouth, something negative comes out. He called all the Trump supporters garbage. Then he threatened to whoop Trump's ass the other day. Or he said he was going to smack Trump in the ass. Like, so what does that mean? Or is that a threat of violence? If it's not a threat of violence, is it are you gay? Like, I don't understand, Biden. What are you doing? I don't understand. So I feel like he should have probably issued a statement of clarity, like letting us know, like, hey, are you trying to fight Trump or are you trying to make out with him? I haven't decided yet. So it's probably bad for me to say, but it's my show. I'll say whatever I want. But it just kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. What are you trying to say, Biden? Because we know you really want to whoop his ass, but that you screw up massively every time you say stuff like that on TV, and then you got to backtrack your statements. Like, I want to see how you're going to clean that up. How are you going to fix that statement? So it's going to be interesting. And what I have noticed also is that we're not seeing a lot of Tim Walz. You don't really see Tampon Timmy campaigning too much. He's out there, but he's not really getting any airtime. Why is that, you suppose? I think he's got a lot of issues. I think he's a bad Um, he's a bad actor for this. I got Shauna in the chat rooms today. She's out and about and doesn't have good cell service, so she's in my chats today. She thinks that Joe Biden is trying to sabotage Kamala, and I agree with that. I think that Biden just don't give a shit. I think he's like, yeah, I'll do whatever I want, say whatever I want. If it hurts Kamala, screw it. Who cares? So, I think there's some issues in that, and I think we need to just let it ride. If Biden wants to keep talking, put a camera in front of that guy for the next few days. Let him get it off his chest. Every time he opens his mouth, it helps our cause. So, let me scroll down on my homework assignment that I did. So going into the election, we're coming out, we're seeing all the campaign strategies. Now there's a lot of on the ground strategic things going on as well. So just here in Georgia, and I don't know if everyone is hearing all this, but and Shauna will tell you, we're hearing it because we're on the ground here. Like these are the counties that me and Shauna are predominantly in all the time. In Georgia, Gwinnett County, DeKalb County, or I'm sorry, DeKalb. If you live in Georgia, you can't say DeKalb, you have to say DeKalb. I always pronounce it wrong, and everybody corrects me all the time. You got Fulton, Cobb, DeKalb, Gwinnett, Clayton County. Then there's the county that Athens is in. I think it's like Athens, Clark County. And then there's another one where the county that Savannah is in, which I can't remember what it's called. But the GOP down here is suing those counties because our early voting stopped on Friday, November 1st. It was the last day you could early vote. Well, those counties, I'm guessing since they all did it together and they're all big Democrat strongholds, that what they did was they all got together as whoever's running the Democrats, election stuff here in Georgia, they got together and said, hey, if you can sneak some in, take them past the date. And they did. So Saturday, which is November 2nd, they were all still collecting ballots. And that's against the election laws here in Georgia. So the GOP has filed suit. Brad Raffensperger has come out and has made a statement that they're going to look into this. And that's a problem. They shouldn't be doing that. So at least he's come out and condemned it already, where we don't have to try to beat it out of him anymore. There's just a lot of issues going on. They're trying their best to cheat. The good thing is, and this is another issue that they had, was they weren't letting the GOP poll watchers in any of those areas either. So I know from taking I am a member of the Gwinnett GOP. So I know what trainings that we have gone to. We knew that because the Democrats were dumping a lot of campaign money into Gwinnett County. So we knew that was going to be a target county. So we had all these things in place to prepare for any irregularities and anything that looked dishonest. There's a whole system in place. And Trump's people pretty much created the system and said, here, if you see these things, call this number. We got lawyers. They'll be there within hours to take care of it and contest it on the spot. So they're catching them. And that's the good thing. The system's working. They're catching these irregularities. And the liberals should not be kicking out the poll watchers on the GOP side. They're not supposed to do that because the poll watchers, they register ahead of time. And so they already know where they're being kind of dispatched beforehand. And so does the election board. They all know who's going where. So there's no reason why any of those areas should be kicking out the GOP poll watchers because they've already been assigned to those areas. So that's a thing that's going on right now, and it's something that they're very well aware of, and it could be going on in other states, and I'm just not hearing about it yet. The news isn't reporting these things yet. But I look to see some things get taken care of. I know in Gwinnett County they have a judge that is going to be on the bench all night for the election in Gwinnett County. So anything that comes up, they're going to be able to get it in front of a judge real quick and make some very quick decisions in Gwinnett County. I think that's a smart decision. It was a smart thing to do. And hopefully the other counties have done the same, which I don't know if that's going to be factual for the other counties or not, but I know for Gwinnett it is. And for those of you who don't know, Gwinnett County has 1 million people in it. So this is a big county. It's not just some, 20,000 pound or 20,000 people farm community. This is a big county, and there's a lot of voters at stake there. And so that's why they dumped a lot of money in that. And the GOP has too. It's a big, we've seen all the Trump came there twice to Gwinnett County. So we know, what's going on. And then, as hopefully in the next, hopefully by tomorrow, we'll hear more information on what's going to happen with these allegations and whatnot. Kamala's economic policy. So I'm going to talk about that real quick because people don't understand that. And I know I've gone through and I've discussed it a lot. I just made another video on TikTok about it. And I think there's a lot of conservatives that don't understand how the economic policies work for either candidates. They just go with, well, because Kamala's a Democrat, I'm going to go with her plan, and Trump's a Republican, so I'm going to go with his plan. But that's not, we should try to break those things down. And I know they're kind of complicated. There's a lot of moving parts to an economic plan. But I can attempt to, kind of like simplify it the best that I can. So Kamala's economic policy, so she comes out and she's campaigning on, I'm going to stop price gouging. So if you're going to stop price gouging, that means she's going to dial back prices of goods across the board. Okay, so as a consumer, initially you're going to go, okay, well, that'll give me some relief. But in the long run, that it's going to destroy this country. This little bit of relief you get from her plan is going to have astronomical effects later. And here's why. So when Biden-Harris administration started, they made this big push to increase the minimum wage across the board. Well, they couldn't get any federal legislation done on that, but businesses took it upon themselves to raise their own minimum wages. So in order for the company that I work for, and I know a lot of you think that I just sit around and don't do anything all day, which is partly true, but I do run a company. And so I'm responsible for every piece of operations of that company. So what would happen is when they raised, all the companies around me raised their minimum wage. So that made me low man on the totem pole as far as hiring. So that took away my ability to compete for better candidates. So we went ahead and we raised our minimum wage, our start out pay. And so when we did that, it made us competitive again. So we were able to compete for some of the better candidates. So now that we've raised that, my overhead went up. So we had to raise the price of our goods just a hair. So there is an effect when you do things like that. Now, if Kamala Harris is going to come in and say, well, your start out pay is higher, but we're going to dial back the amount of money that you're allowed to make because of my price gouging plan. Well, now you've put me in a tough situation because I'm trying to climb the ladder in the company. And the guy below me is trying to climb the ladder in the company. And the guy below him is trying to climb the ladder in the company. So now you've hindered our ability to show on paper that we are successful. Because now on paper, I'm going to take a loss. I'm not going to make as much money as what I did the previous year because of this whole policy. So I'm going to have to make a decision. Your biggest expense in your company is your personnel. So you're going to pay your employees most of your income. And so that's the first thing I'm going to look at is, okay, I'm going to have to lay off 15% of my workforce to cover the loss that Kamala Harris just took from me. Okay. Luckily, we manage our company good enough to where we would survive that. Where a lot of other companies, if you take away some of their profit, that could end that company. And so we don't want to do that because it's going to destroy small businesses and it's going to cause like I had to lay off 15% of my workforce. And I won't be the only company doing that. Everybody's going to be doing that. So we have to, understand that this plan is detrimental not only to small businesses, but to the middle class. You're taking away the middle class's ability to work their way out of the middle class and into the upper class. You also keep people trying to get into the middle class out of the middle class. So it's a very restrictive economic policy. And what it's going to do, what it is, it's social. It's a socialism plan. Let's cap this and cause people to not go any further than where they're at. She puts the glass ceiling over every American in this country. So that's a big reason why this is a failed plan. It decimates the middle class. It takes away the American dream. There's no more American dream. You get to the middle class and you're done. And hopefully you'll be able to stay in the middle class because it's going to destroy most of your startup businesses, small businesses, anything that requires a very tiny bit of margin of error to be successful, you're going to go under. So that's her economic plan in a very shortened explanation. Whereas then we can go into Kamala's migrant policy. She says, I'm going to secure the border. Well, okay. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, she won't map that out. She won't tell us how she's going to secure the border. Anderson Cooper blatantly asked her, are you going to build a wall? She would not say yes or no to that question, which tells me she's dodging it and she's not going to build a wall. She's probably going to say, well, we're going to speed up the process to the pathway to citizenship. That is probably what her plan is going to be. But she can't run on that because Americans don't want it at all. They don't want the migrants in here. They want to get them out of here. So I think it's pretty clear. It's clear to me what her policy is, but she has yet to come out and verbalize that. So Shauna came out and she just said in the chats that Trump's trying to get the economy as strong as he can because they are pushing for the New World Order. People spend so much time talking about Project 2025, but won't talk about the year 2030 that we keep hearing about, which is absolutely true. That is, I feel like Shauna actually listens to me when I talk sometimes because this is like material from my book, and now she's reciting it. It's exciting. Shauna, thank you for listening to me, or maybe you didn't. I don't know, but I'm gonna pretend like you did. But she does make a good point. Everything she says is valid right there, and we'll get back to Kamala Harris here in a second. But now that my book's out, I can come out and talk about it a little bit more. But they don't call it the New World Order. They call it the global world order or something like that. It's like a globalization. They want one global world or something like that. But it's not anything good because they're going to take these European principles because that's where it's rooted at. It's rooted in Europe. And they're going to take these principles. And if you look at the people involved, they're all socialist and Marxist. So they created all these systems and they've already started like kind of feeding them into the United States. And they want to have it all done by 2030. 2030 is the year. They said, we want to have it done. They were going to push it back to 2035, but they had their United Nations summit was last month, I think. So it was in September. But then they came out and said, no, we're not going to push it back to 2035. We're going to expedite the 2030 plan. So they're going to speed it up because Trump's going to screw up the next 4 years. They know that. and he's going to reject it. But Project 2025, Project 2025 is a nothing burger in this whole election. The liberals have made it a something that's not even really relevant. No, nobody on the GOP side is using this Project 2025. I read it, and it's okay. There's some things in there that are okay, but there's a lot of things in there that are a little too radical. So I agree with President Trump on like, hey, it's not really something I'm interested in. It's not. It's not something that, as a whole, you can't use that as your playbook because there's things in there that are too much. And on top of that, the Project 2025 creator endorsed Kamala Harris. So yeah, amongst some of her new all-star, she's got like the top 2 ranking white supremacists in the country have now endorsed her. So good job, Kamala. So Kamala's education policy. So we'll get back to Kamala Harris's crappy policies. She doesn't have an education policy. She thinks there's nothing wrong with the education policy. I highly disagree. There's a lot of things wrong with the education policy. We're now 24th in the world with amongst our K through 12. So we're getting worse. And to sit here in front of me and say that our education system is top tier is a complete lie now. So we now know that. Well, at least they don't report these international stats to the American people, simply because then it would make the Department of Education look bad, and it would screw Randy Weingarten out of her cushy little teachers union job, which she's a whole other different type of evil. So the education system needs redone. So when Trump says that I'm going to tear apart the Department of Education, he's absolutely correct in saying to do that. I will 100% back that policy because our education system is trash. And I don't want to attack the teachers. But at the same time, if you're going to follow that rabbit hole, if you're going to follow them off the cliff, then I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about you then. Because you as an educator have your responsibility is to look out for the best interests of the child in your classroom, not to bow down to socialist oligarchs amongst your ranks. That's not your job. Your job is to look after the education of the children, period. That's it. Nothing else. So if your school district is failing you, you should look for a new school district. I know it's easier said than done, but if you're a good teacher, a good school will hire you. If you're a bad teacher, you're screwed. And that might sound harsh, but that's how it works in the real world too, teachers. If I'm not good at my job, no one's going to hire me. But if I'm good at my job, everyone's going to want to hire me. So Shauna's right. Homeschool. We're homeschooling. That's what a lot of people are resulting to because the education system's so bad. Even some of Sean, are you trying to come in here? I got distracted. That's what happens when I get text messages in the middle of my podcast. Okay, let me find my cursor here. I'm gonna put Shauna back on. Welcome to the show today, Shauna.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I know I'm probably. Do I sound echoey?
No.
Oh, word. I was just typing. I was saying, like, even if you can't afford to homeschool your kids, like, that doesn't mean that you can't study with them when they come home from school and actually know what they're learning. These kids can't even do reading and comprehension, like, which are very big for anything that you do. Math, science, any of those things, you require reading and comprehension. They don't even know how to fucking do that. And it's proven on the internet every day. So my thing is critical thinking skills, all those things you could be at home teaching your kids. It just takes time. Like it takes a little bit out of your time in the day to do that. Doing it on the weekends, like stop letting them get on all these video games and stuff like that. Like literally start making sure your kids know stuff. Like why are these kids are in not like between 9th and 12th grade and they can't even do basic addition and subtraction? Like where have we went wrong in the system? And this has been a problem since I was in high school. So we're thinking this is over 10 years ago and it's only gotten worse than that.
Right. And when you go look at the statistics of like other like metro cities like Chicago, some of the Atlanta metro areas, then we go over to like Los Angeles, some of these major cities, their education statistics are horrendous. And their arguments are always like, oh, well, we have, low graduation rate over here, and we have all these issues in the community here. Okay, well, how long are you going to let that be your excuse before we go in and try to fix some of these things? You can't just say, well, we can have a crappy education system here because the community's crappy. You can't say that. You can't do that. There's still kids they need to learn. So what I would do as a school district is I would figure out ways to get with my community leaders and say, hey, we need to uplift this whole area. How do we uplift people here?
They need to get rid of these. First of all, they need to get rid of these teachers who don't want to teach. That's first and foremost. Like the whole point of a teacher is to inspire and uplift these kids to want to be excited to learn. School's not fun. It sucks. You know what I'm saying? Who wants to sit in a classroom for 8 hours out of the day and we're constantly being shoved information down our throats? Yeah, no, it's not fun. But if you have a great teacher that makes that experience good for you, you're going to want to be there. You're going to want to show up and give your 100% no matter what. And I can say that because I've had several teachers out of my scholastic years that has made me want to do those things. So my thing is that to say that is not an excuse. The first and foremost, they need to stop hiring, because I know in Georgia they will pay for your student loans if you get hired at a lower income, like schools who have those types of problems. They will pay for your student loans for you to be a teacher there. So that means that's already giving them an incentive to not give a shit. Oh, I'm just here so that way they can pay my student loans off and I'm getting a paycheck. You know how many teachers that I heard that from? Like, oh, I'm just here to get a paycheck. And we're talking, I haven't been in school in over 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, realistically speaking. And then we're talking about, you're sitting here having these kids all day, every day, where they're being programmed by social media, where it's like, oh, you can become an entrepreneur. You can start a business of your own. You don't need to go to school. All these fucking stupid ass shits that they're hearing all the time. Like, yeah, the need for going to school is becoming non-existent to them. So yeah, they're not coming in there to learn. They're just like, I just have to be here because my mom's going to fuss at me if I don't. So first and foremost, they got to get rid of the teachers. Secondly, the programs itself need to change. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And this is why these kids are fucking stupid now. Like all of the stuff, you're changing all of these freaking maths, trying to combine it all together. When I was in school, it wasn't even legitimate math. It was math 1, 2, and 3, which was a combination of shit all put together, which makes absolutely no sense.
Well, and you also have to add to that when we look at programs. The 92% of the schools in America use the European model for education, which that they've kind of slowly integrated into our school systems. That is, it's called social emotional learning. And I did a whole show on this, a couple months ago, Sean, I think you were in on that one. And this is basically saying, well, let's take less emphasis on the academia part of it, and let's put more emphasis on people's feelings. But you're not my taxpayer money doesn't send these kids to school for emotions.
That's how they're allowing giving kids rights to be able to say, okay, I want to start a transgender process without the parents knowing. Yeah, because that's what's important. That's so what's important.
Right. And as far as education goes, I would absolutely love, I wish Trump would call me up and be like, hey, you go through all this education process for me. I would love to tear that system apart and rebuild it, because I know exactly what I would do to make the education system better. And We need to increase our standard is half the problem. Like you said, Shauna, the teachers, we got to get rid of the bad apples and bring in the good apples. We have to invest into at-risk communities to help uplift the communities, give them something to be proud of, give them a good school to be proud of, give them good programs for these kids to be proud of. Once you start to create these positive changes, you're going to get a positive reaction out of the community as a whole. And that's going to translate into the youth of the community. So I would start there. You have to actually make a real investment into those communities. And when you look at Kamala's education plan, she does not have one. There is no education plan. It's, well, just write it out because the teachers unions have everything under control. Cardona has everything under control. And that's absolutely not the case.
When we're the only country that has school shootings, yeah, I'm not buying it.
Right.
Like, there's not even a statistic anywhere else in the world but in America where they have a statistic on how many school shootings they have a year. That speaks volume within itself. Like I told you, I have a friend who left the country to move to Greece because for him and his wife to start their family because they were so not feeling like the school system here in America could do their kids justice. So they moved to a whole different fucking country in order to start a family, purely based off of the school shootings.
Yeah.
So we sit here and say that there's nothing wrong with the school system. How? We had a child that literally was investigated by the FBI just shoot a school up and kill students. And we're not concerned about what's going on in the school? Are you fucking kidding me?
Right. The FBI didn't even say like whether they fired anybody over that because they came out and said like, yeah, we had this kid on our radar. Well, you know what? You guys have every shooter that makes any kind of shooting in this country. Probably the last 15 shooters, you guys came out and said, yeah, we've been watching him for a while. Well, apparently maybe you need to do a little less watching and a little bit more intervening. But that's my take on that. I think the FBI is a giant failure when it comes to school shootings.
Yeah, they need to be. If we talk about this, like getting rid of shit, FBI and the police force, two of them on the top of the list.
Well, that's what Trump means when he gets on TV and he says that, you know, we have an enemy within. I know that the mainstream media continues to spin that statement around and try to make everyone think in the country that Trump's going after regular citizens. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about going in and auditing every branch of the system and finding out who's a problem and who's not a problem. And like you said, Shauna, the FBI is on that list. They have had failure after failure after failure and no accountability. The Biden administration has not made anybody accountable.
Listen, when I found out they was dumping crack in the neighborhoods in the 80s, I was done with the FBI then, okay? So they should have been taken away.
Right.
Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, they cause half the problems around here. And that's, you know, why are we putting up with that? You know, it's just like, you know, if when Trump gets in office and they let RFK go through his family's assassinations, what are we going to hear? Are we going to hear that the CIA did it? If that's the case, what good is the CIA to the American people if they're a threat to the American people? You know, we'd have to disband them too. And from what I understand is they've become a little too big for their britches anyway. So I would be all in favor of this, you know, tearing the CIA apart too.
Absolutely. I think that's the continuance thing that we've seen with America is you've gotten to this level of power and you're just abusing it. It's not about the people. It's not about the government. It's about own personal greed. And you see all like director after director. It doesn't matter if you change a new director. It's the whole program. They feel like they're untouchable. They feel like they don't have any consequences. And when people feel like they don't have consequences,
right,
that's when you start to see the type of things that we're seeing. And at this point, they don't even care if the American people know about it because they know that there's not going to be anything that can happen to them. So they're like, okay, yeah, we might have a few aliens rolling around here. Who gives a shit? What are you going to do about it? You can't make us do anything about it. Like, it's just, it's gotten to a point where everybody feels like they're untouchable. And that's the problem. Because at the end of the day, who the fuck is funding all of this shit happening? Like, you're bringing terrorists, you're helping fund all these damn wars and stuff. Who is paying for this? We're the ones paying for it. So when are, like, it's just like at a point now, you've got to put your foot down. You've got to stop being this stupid and this gullible, thinking that the government has goodwill for you, because they don't. And they've shown it time and time again. We sit here and had all of these freaking different documentaries going on. They broke down the whole 9/11 thing, still for it to come back inconclusive if it was an actual problem going on in Iraq that led to the whole thing going on. Nope, but we have plenty of Americans who died in the World Trade Center, and yet we still, and what the conclusion comes from is that the government probably fucking did this shit. So, who's the real enemy here?
Yep, they gotten out of control. There's a lot of problems there. You know, not only CIA, you know, you got the FBI, Homeland Security's compromised. All these agencies just need redone. And you know, the bad thing about it is every agent that is part of the government is subject to a voluntary polygraph. So why put the policy in if you're never going to polygraph anybody? They have the right to refuse it, but they also run the risk of being terminated immediately if refusing. So why are we not, you know, going through these department heads and putting them through that polygraph and saying, okay, let's find out the truth? And they're not doing it because we are the problem. And when you hear other countries talking about the United States, just about every country can conglomerately come together and say that our government is the problem in the world. And we have to do one of two things as an American government. We either have to stand up there, puff our chest out and go, okay, so it's going to be our way or the highway, whether you like it or not, because we got the biggest stick on the block. Or you can go in and redo everything and say, look, we're going to create our government back, but we're going to make it respectful and we're going to make it helpful to the world. Now, everyone's going to have to get on this moral compass with us, or else you're our enemy.
Well, I think you have to too think about the fact that America was founded off of greed. So the whole notion of getting it back to a good point, it was never a good point, because just like I've said before, that we've talked about, even the school system was founded by Rockefeller. So that lets you know already that everything that was created to be a good thing for America was never intended for the people. It was always intended for these high elite families to keep their wealth. So how deep are you willing to go? How hard are you willing to fight? Because everything that we have that has been created around for the people has been to be against the people from the beginning. So when we're talking about this, it's a complete reform. Like, this is starting from ground zero, like actually creating programs that's for the fucking people. First and foremost, starting with education, because the children, we've all heard it all of our lives, children are the future. So we have to start there with education, teaching them the correct education, the correct maths, the correct sciences, things like that. Like, you know, learning that there are 13 months in a year and that we've been told 12, and this is how we get paid off of these things. Those things correlate hand in hand. The only people in the world, I think, that actually goes by the 13th calendar is Ethiopia, which is fucking crazy. But they do this out of greed, so that way you keep this money. Like, learning these things, understanding that, like, this is where it starts. Like, we're starting from ground zero. Like, I commend Trump for wanting to take it on, but like him himself, you know, you have to commend him for wanting to build a team to start that. But realistically speaking, like, we're starting, like, he's fighting a huge fight that even he's not going to be able to win. That this is something that's going to take a fight for a long time, because we're literally having to reform the entire country.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be something that's going to get done overnight. It's going to take some time because you're going to get a lot of pushback from the education system that's already in place. Um, but the good thing is for the most part, when it comes to school districts, um, generally the majority, like at least the rural ones, they pretty much whatever system the state agrees to do, they just jump on board and do it. So if you can get state education systems on board with your plan, you can pretty much control all the education systems in that state. So that's something that he has working for him. Um, it's going to be the inner cities are going to be the ones that are going to resist it because that's where the strong progressive strongholds are at that they're going to have to deal with. So next, let's go into Biden's or Kamala has basically an international policy that's let's give everybody in Europe a hug because they're our friends. When in reality, Europe is not our friend. Europe is a leech. And a lot of people get mad at me, even on the conservative side, for saying that, but it's absolutely true. Europe is not our friend. I don't care who says anything. You will never convince me that Europe has our best interests at heart. When has Europe ever stepped up for us? Every time we get involved with Europe, it's because they are trying to take something. And and on top of that, when you look at the history of Europe, I don't like the idea that we work hand in hand with Europe simply for one reason. It is a continent full of failed empires. When you look at Rome, you look at the Ottomans, you look at the British Empire, you look at the Nazis, it's all failed empires. So why do I want to follow their pattern for failure? I don't. I don't want anything to do with Europe. I want to take all my money and wash my hands of Europe and say, fund yourself. That's what I want to do. That might sound like a really bad thing to say, but it's like being around the team that never really makes the playoffs every year, but they do just enough to not be the worst team. But they're always trying to attract the talent. I'm not trying to be with Europe. Europe doesn't do anything good for the United States. There's nothing good.
And I've never heard not one European ever say anything good about Americans. They've always said, oh, Americans are stupid, they're lazy, all of the above. I've never heard any European say anything positive about America or an American, period.
No, they don't. The politicians all hate us, and the only reason why they tolerate us is because we have the biggest paycheck. And they can't run the United Nations and NATO and all those organizations, World Health Organization, the IMF, all those organizations over there, they cannot function without our taxpayer dollars. They know that. So they deal with us just enough so we'll keep cutting them checks. And for me, that's not a good reason to do business with Europe. I think they're a bunch of failures, and they've clearly turned into a continent full of full out socialist. I don't want no part of that, and we've already allowed them to infiltrate us too much. And I've talked about that a lot in my book, and my dad just brought up a good point. They were in 2 world wars, and guess who came over and saved them twice? We did. And then they continue to just take our money without giving us any kind of respect or anything. They don't do nothing for us. So that's something that I don't want no part of them. So I think Kamala's international policy is garbage. As we can see, Joe Biden's not really interested in intervening in the Israel and Iran situation. I just don't think he cares. And then you have the Russia-Ukraine situation. I don't think he cares about that no more. I think Biden's just waiting to go on his permanent retirement. And you're not seeing anything come out of Kamala. She just, we're going to work with our partners and try to create ceasefires. That's not going to work. You're not going to be able to just get on TV and say, guys, can we have a ceasefire? It's not going to work. You have to go over there, look Vladimir Putin in the eyes and say, we're not putting up with it. And she's not going to do that. She's not going to do that. And she's going to do what every liberal leader has done in the history of America and just relinquish control over to our adversaries. And that's not going to be a good situation. You can't just give them the option to choose what they want to do. We're America. We tell them what they're going to do. And if they don't like it, we'll start flattening stuff. So that's how it's supposed to go. Kamala's healthcare policy is just to continue with Obamacare, which Obamacare is out of control. It's too expensive. It was supposed to be non-expensive, but it ended up being more expensive. And then, the penalties that he inflicted caused a lot of harm, but luckily Trump got rid of the penalties pretty quick. But Obamacare is not really good.
And it hurts people because it forces them not to literally have anything. Like, the only way for you to get the benefits, like, you basically have to be living homeless in order to claim to even get Obamacare. Like, that's the whole thing that's crazy about it. Like, it does absolutely no good. If you have, say you may have had properties or something like that, all of that stuff has to be dispelled. Like, you can't have any of that under you in order to get Obamacare, which I think is crazy.
Yeah, and you can still get Obamacare, but it's not going to be the Obamacare that he was telling everybody you're going to get. Like Shauna said, you have to be on an extreme level of poverty to qualify for the best deal that he was offering.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're paying premium prices.
Mm-hmm. Which is insane.
Yeah. So it really didn't do anybody any good. So Trump's plan. So we'll go into Trump's plan real quick, and then I'll get into the last couple things I want to talk about. He's trying to the tariffs is a good idea for several reasons. And every idiot economist on TV is going to back Kamala and say Trump's tariffs are a bad idea. They're a good idea. And here's why. We get tariffs put on us by China and India. I work in the industry where we ship a lot to those countries. We pay to have them there. So why are we not making them pay us to do the same? Because it's not free trade. It's we screw ourselves by not making anybody pay the tariffs. So if we put the tariffs in place and make them really high, China's got to make a decision. Do they go bankrupt by not selling their goods to us, or do they pay the tariff and make America money? It's a win-win situation. If we want to control China and their aggression levels towards the rest of the world, that's how you do it. You hit them in the pocketbook where they can't fund anything anymore. Same thing with Russia. Same thing with Iran. Same thing with India. We need to be able to control the goods coming into the country. And if countries don't want to pay the tariff, then they can go do business elsewhere. Or, and Shauna will tell you this because I do the same thing at work, where I put my foot down and I say, this is where it's at. If you don't like it, see ya. And 9 times out of 10, these people will come back with a counter offer. And I know that. And I win a lot of conflicts in the business world by doing that. And it's basically just saying, hey, you're not that important to me. And then they think about it and they're going, well, fiscally, it's a better situation for us to do business with them, but he's not budging. So I guess we'll just give him what he wants. And it works every time. And that's something that Trump can use to his advantage. Like, here's our line in the sand. If you're not gonna look out for us, we're not looking out for you. And so what else? If China decides, hey, we're not going to pay your tariffs, okay, your shit's not getting in our country. So what happens now? We buy American-made products. Oh my gosh, isn't this something we should have been doing? We should have been tariffing the crap out of China. So then Walmart shelves won't be stocked full of Chinese shit. And maybe we'll have American made stuff on the shelves in Walmart and American businesses can grow and get big. Well, that might be a good idea. Why would we not want American businesses to do good? I mean, it is an act of terrorism to be part of Make America Great Again. So, maybe that's something. I don't know. But the tariffs are a great idea. It's going to help hold the world accountable. It's going to find out who's really trying to play ball with us and pay our prices. We don't need China. We've got plenty of talented companies in our nation that can get the job done. They just do it cheaper, and we don't have to. We don't need Dollar General. We don't need Family Dollar. We don't need all those stupid ass places that flood you with Chinese shitty stuff. It will also create where these countries, instead of China putting plants in Mexico or in Singapore or all these other places, the deal could be put a plant in the United States, hire American workers to do these jobs. And that's a benefit for us too. And then it benefits China because then they have to, employ American people, but they still get to make money off of the American people. So financially and economically and internationally, that is what makes the most sense. I'm going to try to get through these a little quicker because I got more important things to discuss. So consumers, they're going to buy more American-made products. The money's going to the opportunity is going to benefit the United States. It's going to cripple China, Iran, Russia, and Venezuelan's economies, which is what we want. If you want to control the countries that have ill intentions towards other people in the world, you cripple them through the economy. Trump is notoriously good at it. Let him do it. So second to last topic, Shauna, we're going to talk about the RICO case with Young Thug. We've been talking about this, and Shauna, we were proven right. So they didn't completely drop the case, but they gave Young Thug a deal that he couldn't resist. So he took a plea deal. Go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, 15 years of probation doesn't sound too fucking bad. I mean, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
The man's made more than enough money to sit down somewhere for 15 years and not have to fucking worry about it. He has a catalog of music where he's going to be making triple that for the next 15 years. Who gives a shit? Just get the man out of jail.
Right. So the Fonnie Willis's office screwed this case up so bad that I'm pretty sure they had to see Fonnie Willis is being opposed in an election right now by this I can't remember her name is. It's a woman that's going for that district attorney job, and she's been very vocal, like, hey, you guys screwed this case up, just throw it out. You're wasting taxpayer money. And Sean, it was after we were talking about that, how they wasted all the Fulton County taxpayer money on this massive RICO case, and that's fallen apart like piece by piece on them, and now there's nothing left of the case. If Young Thug really wanted to hold out longer, he would get a not guilty verdict. And that's how bad they've screwed this case up. And so he took a plea deal. Fonnie Willis said, I got to get something out of this because we've gone down this, he's been in jail for like 2 years. So he took a guilty plea on a drug and gun charge. And he pled no contest to conspiracy and participating in a street gang. So there's 4 felonies right there. They gave him time served on a 40-year sentence. So there is a tail that hangs with that. So there is 20 years hanging over his head. But he's, like Shauna said, he's got 15 years probation. It's a tall order. But he's banned from Metro Atlanta. So all he has to do is stay out of Atlanta. And then no contact with any affiliated gang members, which is good. That might be kind of hard to accomplish because that's the nature of his
not really.
Money.
Not really. That man, no, not really. That man.
Not really?
No. My whole, realistically, realistically speaking, the amount of money that Thug has, for one, who gives a shit if he's going to go downtown? Nobody wants to go downtown anyways. It's nothing but full of homeless people and smells like piss all the time. So nobody's too upset about him not being in downtown. And oh God forbid, he can't go to Phipps Plaza in damn Lenox. Who gives a shit? My whole thing is that the man has more than enough money. He can move to a whole other state and doesn't have to deal with this at all. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, okay, no, not talking to anybody that's in the gang. Okay, cool. So, sure. Oh my God, that's the world's worst thing ever. Because, I mean, realistically, how many of those people were he talking to anyways at this point in his life and career? The ones that are still living anyways. So, okay.
But
wow.
either way, Fonnie Willis massively screwed that court case up. She destroyed it, and she got something out of it. Now, with that said, so you who are not on my Facebook and stuff like that, so my book has finally come out, and it's available at Barnes and Noble. I'm gonna have to adjust that a bit. Maybe. Let's see if I can get it right this time. There we go. We're looking good now. So there's my new book, The Swiss Effect. It's the, obviously the one on the left with the Swiss flag on there. And then my old book, From the Mouth. So this is Barnes and Noble's page. It's also available on Amazon and on my my publisher's page, which is Archway Publishing Bookstore. So when you Google, you'll want to Google Archway Publishing Bookstore, or you can go through Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Eventually, I would be willing to assume that it will be on Walmart and Kmart as my last book was. So go out and buy my book, $20.99. Good Christmas gift if you want to learn about who really is running America. My year-long investigation into who the people are that are running this country, and it's not who you think it is. And I promise it's entertaining, and there's a lot of investigative reporting in there, and interviews with media people that I talked to. I did a lot of digging for that book. So please check it out. Appreciate it. Hate it, whatever. But I appreciate anybody who looks out for the book. So that is going to be our show for the day. And we will be back Wednesday after, hopefully, we'll be talking about Donald Trump being president. So that is going to be the show for the day. Shauna, thanks for tuning in. And everybody be safe out there. Watch out for crazy people in the next couple of days. That could happen. All right. I'm out.
Bye, peeps.